In the heart of the Big Apple, inside the historic Buttercream Towers, something strange was afoot, or rather, a muffin was. Gelatina Gomez, the sweet yet sharp pastry podcaster, lived on the 12th floor. Her neighbors, Steve Martina, a retired butter sculptor, and Martin Shortening, a dramatic baking instructor, were known for solving sticky situations. But nothing could have prepared them for this morning's mystery. It was the holiday season, and all the tenants of Buttercream Towers awoke to a basket of muffins outside their doors. "Who are these from?" asked Gelatina. "Oh, cranberries," said Martin with his mouth full. "Just like what my mother used to make," said Steve, a very thoughtful gift from someone. Later that evening, Gelatina, Martin, and Steve were all on the elevator. When another tenant, OhNo, joined them, he was on his phone. He seemed to be having an argument with someone. He had a muffin in his hand. He took a big bite and then spit it out. "Disgusting," he said, and threw the rest of it in the trash when he stepped off the elevator. The rest continued on their way when suddenly the fire alarm went off. Everyone started outside. On the way out, Steve noticed a hooded figure heading up into the building by the fire escape. How odd, he thought. It was a cold, snowy night. The tenants were all waiting to go back into the warm building, when suddenly there was a wail of sirens and 2 police cars, and a squad car pulled up. Someone was dead, and it was murder. OhNo had been found stabbed with a golden carving knife. Gelatina, Steve, and Martin met for breakfast the next morning. "This is terrible," said Gelatina. "Obviously, this was a crime of passion." "Tim had terrible dark secrets," said Martin. "We should look into this," said Steve. Gelatina, Martin, and Steve made their way to Tim's apartment. Steve picked the lock and they started looking. Who was OhNo? Tim's apartment was incredibly organized and clean. Spotless, really, except for in the dining room, where there was a large red stain on the floor. So Tim was killed in the dining room. Throughout the rooms were framed articles written by Tim, who was a food critic, and it looked like he was a harsh one. He had signed photos of stars as well. His bookcase was full of restaurant menus. There were hundreds with markings in red ink. They gathered the menus, and Martin had been snapping photos of the apartment for later reference. Gelatina found Tim's laptop and decided that it could have important information. They left Tim's apartment. Gelatina took their evidence back to her apartment. Steve and Martin went to question Bert, the doorman. Bert was happy to talk to Martin and Steve. "No one's going to miss that, Tim. He was an unfriendly fellow, never a thank you or hello, and never a tip. He was always ordering from Desert Demas. I would take it up 6 levels immediately. He always ordered a frozen chocolate cheesecake, and he didn't want it to melt. He yelled at me once that I did not bring it quickly enough, and he threw the cake at me. No, I never did like him." Meanwhile, Gelatina was busy gathering info from the laptop. After a couple of tries, she got in and started searching. She recovered a deleted letter to String the musician. It was a letter not recommending patty cakes as a personal chef. Tim was very harsh, saying her food was not fit for dogs. But the letter was dated the afternoon Tim was killed. Gelatina remembered seeing a signed photo of String in Tim's apartment. String also happened to be a tenant of the Buttercream Towers. Steve, Gelatina, and Martin gathered to compare notes. They decided to order dessert from Desert Demas. They all went. The owner, Frankie, and his son Tommy were busy filling holiday dessert orders. Martin and Steve talked to Frankie, while Gelatina talked to Tommy. "Oh, you live at Buttercream Towers. That's where that guy was killed." "Yes," said Gelatina. "I understand. He was a loyal customer here." "Oh, sure," said Tommy. "Of course he got free food. He had a deal with my dad. Tim got free desserts for writing good reviews for us." Tommy frowned, but he took advantage. He would bring large groups of friends here and tell them to order whatever they wanted for free. "We were losing a lot of money. Dad just told him last week the deal was off, but Tim didn't want to hear it. He got really mad and told Dad that if he wasn't going to keep getting free food, he was going to write a really bad review." Regrouping back at Buttercream Towers, Steve, Gelatina, and Martin discussed how they could talk to String since it was the holidays. They decided to bring him food. But none of them really cooked. The next evening, Gelatina and Steve and Martin were standing outside String's apartment holding a holiday ham, singing carols. String opened the door. We are bringing holiday cheer to our fellow tenants in view of the terrible tragedy of Tim's death. Did you happen to know Tim? Yes, said String. He was a friend. He always knew the best places to eat. I understand. He recently gave you some advice on a personal chef? Oh, yes, said String. I was looking for a new chef, and Tim was my go-to on food advice. He was going to taste the cooking, give me his opinion. He gave me a glowing recommendation, and Patty has been cooking for me all week. Oh, really, said our trio. What is going on? Said Martin. When the regroup, something is fishy, said Steve. Gelentina was looking through Tim's laptop again. Look, guys, I just found another letter in Tim's file. This one is to String. It gives a glowing recommendation for patty cakes. Tim didn't seem to be the kind of guy to change his mind, said Gelentina. I think we need to talk to Frank again, said Martin. Look, said Steve, picking up a paper that was slid under the door. There is a memorial for Tim this evening in the lobby for all the tenants. I have a plan, said Gelentina. All the tenants of the Buttercrumb were gathered in the dimming light. There was a speech by Bertha, the manager, and then a time for anyone to say a few words. Martin stood up. I know, he said with outstretched arms, who killed Tim. OhNo, it was a crime of passion, a passion for food. It was you, he said, turning suddenly and pointing to patty cakes. You met Tim at his apartment to cook a trail meal, said Steve, and when you heard his opinion, you stabbed him with the carving knife. You then deleted his letter to String and wrote a new one with a glowing report. You didn't realize that his laptop memory saved the letter you deleted. Patty Cakes was led away to jail. String thanked. I could have been next, he said. There's just one thing that puzzles me, said Steve, who made the cranberry muffins. Just then a lady said, Hi, I couldn't help but overhear. I'm Susan. I am guilty of making the muffins. Would you and your friends be interested in a holiday meal with me? They spent the evening enjoying a delicious homemade dinner made by Susan, who it turned out had no family close by for the holidays. They all agreed that it was the best meal they had ever had. Until next time, only Muffins in the building.